All right. So my name is Luke Mayfield. For the folks that don't know, I'm one of the co-founders of Grassroots Wildland Firefighters and the current president. I don't know that we are in a place to provide any silver bullets. We are here to provide pieces of clarity and probably create a lot more questions than we do provide clarity. The FY24 president's proposal is historic. No matter on what the perspective is, the discussions and advocacy for proper classification, pay and benefits, comprehensive health and well-being, increased capacity have been going on in one form or another for more than 3 decades. Is this proposal perfect? No. And the Washington Office Fire and Aviation Management and Office of Wildland Fire also say no, it's not perfect. Is it a step in the right direction? Yes. And the Washington office, both on the USDA side and the DOI side, want to hear what and where this can be adjusted and altered. The proposal as is doesn't mean it's the proposal that is going to become the permanent solution or a part of the solution. There's been more movement in the past 3 years than we've seen in over 3 decades. I do strongly believe that this is because of the power that exists when a community comes together with a unified voice and a common message. This does not mean that we're always going to agree or that this is the end of the advocacy efforts or that we're taking a victory lap based off of a proposal that still has a long way to go. Grassroots will remain in place to continue to advocate and provide a meeting place for self-advocacy and a common message across end user groups. In speaking with the Washington Office Fire and Aviation Management team and the Office of Wildland Fire, I have been extremely impressed with the time, thought, energy, and effort that has taken place to get to a proposal that has been included in the president's FY24 budget. I really don't know that anything of this nature has ever occurred. And if you go back to 2013 or 2012, the last time that classification was legitimately brought up, OPM's response was that if you're called a firefighter, you're going to lose hazard pay, and hazard pay equates to 15% of your annual salary. And if we're to do that, or if you're to lose that, OPM would have to give wildland firefighters a 4.5% increase, and that's too expensive. So to see what's on the table now, starting at 42% at the GS1, tapering down, and the inclusion and maintenance of hazard pay, this is historic. The FY24 proposal does include the expectation that fire line operators continue to operate. In most cases, the combination of the pay raise scale, premium pay components, and fixed schedules of 15 on and 9 in the standby pay will surpass the bill supplement and will provide the opportunity for more flexibility based off of the employees and the agency's willingness to allow that to happen. And again, we know this isn't perfect, and we know that it does incentivize people to continue going on fires and potentially chasing the same amount of hours that we're chasing now in order to make a livable and plannable income. This will have an extremely positive compounding effects across assignments to include prescribed fires and severity assignments, and the impacts to firefighter retirement calculations will be great. This was not a unilateral decision from the Washington Office FAM or OWF. If they had their way, this proposal would look a lot different than it looks right now. They had to work and cooperate and compromise with a variety of folks, including OPM, OMB, And there's considerations that are just well above my pay grade, and considerations that make my brain extremely smooth. So as I said, many parties were involved, and there was a great deal of compromise and consideration to get where we currently stand with the FY24 President's budget proposal. I do encourage, based off of what we heard yesterday and a conversation that I was able to have with another individual after our Washington office call yesterday, I encourage everyone to attend the town halls that are taking place across each region, because those, at least the briefing I got on what will be presented, gave me a lot of hope in how they're presenting it and their ability to provide transparency on the process used and the flexibility that it does potentially give employees to hit the supplement pay. And again, the supplement pay is just a supplement. The compounding effects of this being a part of a permanent pay table with the fixed schedules and the premium pays does have a lot of potential to improve upon what Bill did, and have the inclusion of those compounding effects on retirement. So again, go to the town halls, watch them. I imagine they'll be recorded. I believe the first one potentially started today in R5. I believe that they, again, will provide the clarity and transparency of what this proposal looks like for fire line operators in primary and secondary positions. And we also know that there's issue because not everyone is going out operationally in their primary or secondary positions. I must also add that this is a proposal. We need Congress to pass this proposal specific to wildland fire. It needs to be passed intact and in its entirety to have the holistic effect that the WO is looking for. It needs to pass as part of the FY24 proposal or independently of the proposal. And both of those things are possible based off of what we currently know. Again, this proposal isn't perfect, but we can influence portions of the proposal to make it better and make it closer to what we feel right looks like. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Reva Duncan, Vice President of the Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. And again, thank everyone. I thank everyone for showing up and listening.
Thanks, Luke. For those who don't know me, my name is Reva Duncan. I'm the Vice President of Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. I retired in December of 2020 after about 31 years with the Forest Service, and I still go out as an AD. So I'm coming up on my 34th fire season. As Luke said, you know, we want to be as transparent with all of you as possible, and just say that even within our grassroots organization, so within our board and our various subcommittees, comms team, we don't all agree on everything, right? And that's a good thing because we need to have different voices in the room. We come from various backgrounds. We come from different GS levels, different positions, different geographic areas. And so we want you to know that we are having hard conversations with ourselves as well. And we have different viewpoints because we all have different values. But I think we all agree on the one important value is that we're still working really hard towards real reforms for the wildland fire community, starting with the federal workforce. You know, having so much time in the Forest Service, I can remember hearing talk about trying to just change our series. That was 30, you know, probably 25 years ago. And they weren't even able to do that. And so this is a big deal. I mean, this is a big deal to me. I won't see I won't get a pay raise as a retiree, but I still care about the community. It's why I'm involved in Grassroots. And this is huge. And like Luke said, it's not going to make everybody happy. We get that. But we've had a seat at the table with the Washington office and the Office of Wildland Fire, who represents the four the 4 DOI agencies. And while we didn't have a hand in this proposal, you know, they hear what we say every month when we meet with them, and we tell them what we're hearing from all of you. And so we really appreciate that you get on these calls with us, that you send us emails, that you respond to our socials, because we're trying to be the voice and we need to hear from you. We need to hear those voices that maybe don't agree. So that's a good thing. Dissent is okay. Disagreement is fine. Conflict is healthy. Let's see. As Luke said, you know, so to back up a little bit, some people we even had a question initially, like if we stay under a continuing resolution, which is likely, can any of this even get implemented or passed in a budget? And the answer to that is yes. So Congress can still choose to take portions of the proposed budget out, even under a CR, and pass it to be funded, right? Again, this is in, you know, Congress has to be willing to do this, but it can be done. It is also important, like, I feel like it's, you know, I mean, I would hate for us to take a step backwards and say, well, this isn't good enough, so we're not going to do anything, right? I mean, because that's what we're facing. So it is important, like Luke said, we've talked about the firefighter as a whole person, with family, with, you know, friends, with community, with being able to buy a house, with mental health, physical health. And so that's how I look at this package as well, as an entire holistic effort towards trying to address a lot of these different things. Now, legislators, when they're in the weeds and they're taking things out and they're putting things in, when they're negotiating this budget, they can choose to break it apart. But, you know, my message to my elected officials is to please keep it intact, because it's all intertwined, right? People have asked when they're going to vote on the budget. They're supposed to vote like April 15th. That's not going to happen. Our legislative specialist has told us that, you know, they never hold to those dates. It didn't get released until later. So we don't have the answer when they're going to vote on it, but it will be very critical, according to the rep from USDA was on our call yesterday. It will be important who actually introduces this part as legislation, right? And just because they might be an ally to our cause, like we've had Congressman Neguse, right, who introduced Tim's Act, Katie Porter, some of those, doesn't mean they might be the best person to get other elected officials on board with it, right? It's a very complicated thing, you know, in the halls of Congress. So it's the sausage being made literally. So, and also what's important is that when they've been briefing legislators and their staffers, you know, elected officials who live in an area that might not have a high fire load, so parts of the Northeast. We know there are even parts in, you know, like Alaska that don't. There are parts even in the Southeast that might not have a huge fire load. And they might be thinking, why do I care? This doesn't affect me. And so again, our job is also to paint that picture of why it does affect everybody. We have federal wildland firefighters in every state in the US. And while they may not fight a lot of fire in their state, they're going other places to fight fire. And they live in those communities. And also we know, you know, people on the East Coast were eating a lot of smoke a couple of years ago. They were seeing smoke in Connecticut. So again, we have to be able to communicate why this matters across the US to all elected officials and their constituents. And then I just want to shift gears a tiny little bit and just talk a little bit about the series. So the new series is not connected to this, which is a good thing, right? Because the people who are going to benefit from the permanent pay increase, if it gets passed, are the same people who got the supplement under the BIL. So basically, people who are in fire positions, primary, secondary, are going to continue. So that includes wage grade, right? That includes secondary fire. That includes prevention. Right now, it includes dispatchers, because we're asking those questions. And so those same people should be in this. And so even if people might be not included in the series, as long as they're identified in a fire position, they should be able to get this permanent pay increase. Now, the series, the Forest Service asked for an extension from OPM for 6 months, and they were granted that, and that will be until December. They recognize how complicated and complex this is, particularly with the dispatch series, and they want more time to try and do their best to flesh out all the issues, all the information, and get to a good place with identifying which positions and jobs go into the series. So we're going to focus tonight on budget, on the proposal, because we just don't have a lot to add about the series, but just to give you guys an update on that. And I think with that, I'm going to pass it over to Bobby. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Bobby Scopa here. I'm retired. If you know me, I retired a few years ago, and when I retired, I had about 44 seasons on the job, and you might say, well, why does some old retiree, why am I involved in this? And the reason I am involved in it is because I want to help. I want to see what we can do to improve the lot of all of you and all of us in general. I've only been on the board for a few months, so it's a steep curve, and I'm still trying to come up to speed. I can tell you the executive board, it's such an impressive group. The people who are doing the work, a couple of months ago, I was just on a meeting like this, I was just tuning in because I'm a member and I wanted to see what was going on. And in a few months, I'm on the board now, but your board it's amazing how much work they get done, how much time they spend on these issues representing you. And so I'm just amazed at the good work that they're doing. Now, so here we are. In my career, I started in '74, and we've been talking about something like this now for, I don't know, since the '90s. So we have been trying to make progress, and we have been hearing stories and hearing words about how we're going to get a better job series and better pay and all that. This is huge. Now, there's nothing for sure going to happen here. Here we are hoping, and we're working towards getting something done. But I just want everybody to realize how amazing this is, that the grassroots group was invited for a special briefing from the agency. We're invited to the Department of Ag's briefing. And this is a priority of the administration. That's amazing. Now, there's a lot of negative out there. There's a lot of people who just as soon not see us get any improvements. But the fact that this is on the table, it's amazing. Now, you can't have been in this business for as many years as I was and not become cynical. I think the longer you're in, the more cynical it's easy to become. And so here I am. I'm probably the longest, longest serving firefighter in here, but I'm cynical. I don't trust the agencies. I've worked for multiples of them. However, saying how cynical I am based on my experiences, this is the closest we have ever gotten to the progress that we've been wanting and hoping for years. This is the closest we've ever come. If we're going to be successful, it's going to take everybody's support to make it happen. Now, that said, this is a complex set of proposals. I use the example about when I was at GS3 and I couldn't understand my timesheet that the ranger station filled out for me. You had straight time, you had hazard time, you had overtime, you had Sunday diff. I couldn't understand that. This is going to be really, really complicated. And we don't know all the details. If this passed as is, we couldn't explain to you exactly how it's going to work. But the best we can tell, it's a significant it would be a significant raise for everybody. So I'm cynical and I'm optimistic. And if you think that's crazy, it is, but that's me. Keep in mind, this is only step one. If this were to pass, this isn't like we all go home now waving the flag, we've won. That's not it. This is a first step if we're successful with the president's proposed budget. I have Riva, should I mention the FLSA issue now? Okay, so there's some question of, that the standby pay that's in the proposal. So when you're on a fire assignment and you work your 15 and then you're getting standby pay for 9, that doesn't apply to FLSA. Now that's a good thing for us, because if it was included in the FLSA, then we would be, if that was a regular part of our job, that means we wouldn't get to earn overtime until we hit 52 hours a week, because that's based on structure firefighters, and structure firefighters work, the FLSA determined that the standard work week for structure firefighters was 52 hours. Some work 54, some work 48, some work 56. But the point is, if we were including those standby hours as a regular part of our pay and as a regular part of FLSA hours, then we would not start earning our overtime until we had hit 52. So it's a good thing. I'm really impressed that the WO, worked with labor. Department of Labor and figured that's all out. So that's a good thing. If you hear some conversations about those hours, standby hours are not included in FLSA, that's a good thing for us, that we come out ahead. We would lose money if it was included. I guess I'm just going to wrap that up by saying we're closer than we've ever been. I would guess that the odds of this passing as is aren't great, but it's on the table, and we've never had anything like this on the table before. So you can thank those folks that have been running this organization, because they have been integral in making this happen. I'm not in that group, but I'm trying to help now. So I'll turn that back over to you, Luke.
All right. Thank you very much, Bobby. And then from here, we'll hand it off to Smoke Jumper Brochacho to go over the nuts and bolts of the current proposal.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So we've been talking about the proposal, and I think we should just go over it so everybody's on the same page here. You guys got my screen, it looks like. So here's our website. It's getting a little messy because there's just so much stuff going on. I mean, which is good, but a little messy. So on the top of the site right here is kind of all you need to know about the legislative proposal. And so the actual legal part is right here, the legislative proposal, and the budget justifications for the Forest Service. You can find that here, and the BLM, or just the DOI in general. Well, this is BLM, but I think DOI is all the same. You can go over it this way. You can click on here and you can pull up the actual, there's a letter to Kamala Harris, and then there is the legal stuff here that you can go through. So what's changing? They're creating a new pay table. That's, for everybody, that's pretty much the biggest one, separate pay table from GS, and we'll go over that right here. So the new pay table increases from the GS. So GS 1 and 2 are just, they're just there because they exist. There's no other reason for them to be there, because we all know it starts at GS 3 and it goes all the way up. Those are the percentage increases on the rest of US or, GS scale. The numbers are all, we all know what the numbers are. For infrastructure law, it was 50% until about GS 5, and then it was, a little under $10 an hour for your base as a supplement. And then these are the numbers that they came up with, and it starts high, and it is basically a straight line on a graph down to the GS15 down to 1.5%. So you can check that out and calculate your pay there, or the proposed pay. I should not have written portal to portal. We want to stay away from that term. It's a standby premium pay. I will fix that on the website. Sorry. So the standby premium pay is going to be 50% of your base rate. So if you make 20 bucks an hour, your standby pay will be $10 an hour. There's some complexities here. Who gets the portal, or I will fix that. The standby premium pay, who gets that? So there's some qualifiers. You need to be a wildland firefighter based on the definition of firefighter, and you can look that up, or certified by the applicable agency to perform wildland fire incident related duties. So that is, we've used the term militia, but it's basically Forest Service or DOI employees that have a red card and go out to support wildfires. And then your event that you're assigned to has to qualify. So a qualifying incident is wildfire, prescribed fire, or a severity incident. So like in my world of smoke jumping, you could get sent to, or, rappelling's the same way, or, you can get sent down to boost a different base when there is a predicted lightning or fire, activity coming. And that would count as a severity incident. If you're sent on an engine down to, out of region, it's a severity incident. Same thing when you travel for RX in Region 8 or anywhere else in the Forest Service. So they all count. And here's the definitions here. So I think we already went over this, but yeah, the employee is deployed to the field. So there's some language in here that they'll have to kind of parse through. And then the agency has to place that employee in continuous duty status during the incident deployment. And then sleeping and resting occur in a field location. I'm assuming that means any place other than your duty location. So when that's all met, they are fixing your duty days at 15-hour duty days with 9 hours of rest period. And the rest period is when you would be getting the standby premium pay of 50% of your base rate. Some awesome stuff here. We've all gone to other locations and gotten, 10-hour days on the road when you're away from your family. This would set your day at 15-hour days, and plus, another 9 hours at 50% pay. So definitely some good stuff there. And kind of like what Bobby was saying, they are looking to exempt this from FLSA, and there's some complexities there. But what they're saying essentially is that because this is more hours in your day at a lower than base rate, it actually would lower your FLSA payments. So they're trying to get this out of your FLSA. We're all experts on FLSA now after getting supplemental pay that added so much to our salaries. And then really this next part here, the new rest and recuperation leave, that to me is a big, it's really nothing for us to worry about. It's formalizing the R&R policy. So I've been on some places where when you go on a fire assignment, you come back, you're on O1 time for your R&R days, or some places you're on admin leave for your R&R days. It's kind of all over the board, and they're just trying to formalize it. But the key thing is you have to use it immediately after returning from a fire or whatever assignment it is that qualifies. Let me see if I can. Yeah, rest and recuperation leave must be used immediately after a qualifying incident and may not receive any payment for unused rest and recuperation. So you can't accumulate it, and you can't use it on your day off. It's the same thing as what we're doing now. They're just formalizing that policy. Other stuff, there's two other things that are happening. There's the pay cap. They're looking to get rid of the pay cap. That affects so few. I know it's important for the people it does impact, but for, grassroots wildland firefighters, I noted it here and I didn't really go over it because it's pretty straightforward and it doesn't apply to very many people. One thing I'm particularly excited for is there's language in there to potentially boost the pay for blue collar wildland firefighters. And I'm thinking that's dozer operators. Here's the language if you want to read it. But hopefully that gives potentially the same pay increase for wage grade dozer operators and whoever else is wage grade. So for me, looking at this proposal, it's not good or bad. There's winners and losers with any policy. For me personally, it's hard to tell what my salary is going to be. It's a lot of stuff. It's very complex. And I think we're all going to have to take a while and digest it and do some math and see where you end up. And if it's good for you or I mean, there's a lot to it. So I think that's all I've got. If anybody has any questions, throw them in the chat and I'll try to answer them. But this website is a really good resource. Again, you can go over it if mobile works for you, or you can download all the stuff and check it out. But it's there for you to see and share with your crews and have some discussions with the people you care about. So thanks a lot.
Hey, this is Reva. I'm going to jump in on that a little bit, but first I need to address a statement in the chat. Someone said dispatch isn't included. They're not firefighters. That's not correct. And so this is the kind of misinformation we need to make sure we're not spreading. So if a dispatcher goes on a fire assignment, and we know dispatchers go all over the place to work in dispatch, where I am here in North Carolina, we've got a bunch of Westerners sitting in dispatch right now during fire season. They will be on an assignment, and so they will get the premium pay, right? And so again, and this is militia. So anybody in logistics, plans, finance, anybody who supports a wildland fire or prescribed fire will get this premium standby pay. So wanted to just clear that up there a little bit. And then I want to give an example. When Smoke Jumper Bro was going through and talking about severity, I asked a question yesterday when we were on the phone, on the call with Forest Service and OWF is, okay, so for example, severity assignment, you bring in resources from off your unit on severity, and they're getting premium pay. Even though you might be working 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts under severity, you don't get IA, right? And so what about the home unit? What about the home unit resources who are also charging to severity, including dispatchers, right? And that was something they just hadn't thought of, because again, we've got people up in the Washington office who are so far removed, they can't think of everything. And so these are the kind of things we're trying to daylight for them. And they're going to try and assemble, they're working on a huge frequently asked questions. And these are the kind of things they want to be able to address. So if you all think of things like this too, yes, the duty officer will call up. Now, I don't know about duty officer at the home unit, but if you're on a duty officer assignment, yes. But that's a good question. And that's something that we can ask them to address in the frequently asked questions. So we're going to continue to compile this. And if you're in your town hall meeting, if you're in meetings with your regional offices or forest, ask these questions. Tell them you want answers for this. Done.
Yeah, and also provide them to us. The WO specifically asked 4 questions to add to their frequently asked questions and use it to influence, what they can influence in terms of this proposal changing in one aspect or another. The only other thing before I hand it over to Dutch is talking about the fixed schedule. The fixed schedule the proposal would make it the fixed schedule. I know the question will come up, well, what if we work 16-hour days? What if we work a 24-hour shift? What was explained to me, work to rest ratio, if you work a 24-hour shift and then you're down for 12 hours to meet that, you go straight back into that 15 and 9. So those 12 hours are now covered at the accurate rate, not in, sleeping or getting rest. So I think in the end, it adds more hours per pay period by 21 over a pay period with those rest hours. And it's something that's that's fixed. So it should, I would imagine, clean up the timekeeping and the need to justify why you're not taking a lunch break or why you're not showing a dinner break. So I think there's pluses, and the net result is more hours reported versus less. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dutch on the comprehensive health and well-being side, and then we'll move into the Q&A.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks everyone for being here. For those of you who haven't met yet, my name is Dutch. I am the chair of the Grassroots Comprehensive Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee. We came together roughly about 2.5 years ago to start to hash out and dig into some action items and projects we could take on to help support the field surrounding both mental and physical health challenges that we know fire's been facing for a long time. The good news on that is, I think over the years, we've started to recognize and acknowledge that this is a huge issue. And so, we've been pushing forward to try to take a lot of this on. There has been a tremendous amount of movement over the last 3 years on this, and a really good faith effort, I think, across the board to start to address this. Also understanding that mental health is complex. All these topics are complex, and they are very interwoven. So we've tried to take on as holistic approach as we can. In regards to the fiscal year 24 President's budget, as has already been stated, we know there is still incentive to get out into the field, or it does incentivize that. We understand that. And, the hope is that as, the pay structure goes throughout the course of the season, that it does provide people options to potentially take time if they have the ability. Though we also know that folks are in a wide array of different situations personal to each one of us. We also know that some of that is a cultural issue, depending on what modules you work for, who you work for. Again, the goal with this is to continue to educate, provide people options and opportunities, if there is an opportunity to take time to reach balance or to tie in with family or whatever it is folks need to do. So in line with that, some things that have come up or some updates. First and foremost, we're excited. We will have 2 grassroots representatives up next week in Boise at the Joint Comprehensive Health and Wellbeing Summit. We're there to help speak for the field and represent, the workforce and the community at large, to talk about some of the challenges we've faced, and more importantly, to talk about solutions. A lot of what has been created has been a huge step forward. Again, that is the Joint Interagency Comprehensive Health and Well-being Program. Spans across both the Forest Service and the DOI to start to address a robust response to issues when they arise, both the physical and the mental front, to create prevention programs or education. We know those are both really critical pieces. And when we do go up there, our hope is also to try to address the source, which, over many years, as fires grow more intense, folks are away from home longer, seeing, a wide range of things that can be traumatic. We want to make sure that's addressed too. Start to talk about, some options that might be available, looking at schedules, looking at the science of these things. So how we can support things before they happen. So that'll be a large part of, what we hope to bring up when we're in Boise next week. Some other things that are continuing and a work in progress. So in the bipartisan infrastructure law, there was direction to provide mitigation strategies and recommendations through the secretaries and down to the agencies. We have been able to, make contact with a few of the points of contact that are working on those projects. I can tell you, I have the utmost faith in those individuals, and there's a lot of really good people that care a whole lot about what they're working on and are looking for solutions as well. So that certainly brings me confidence. Again, it's complex, but I have the utmost trust in those people, and I'm grateful they're taking it on. So in December, in the National Defense Authorization Act, the Firefighter Fairness Act was passed, essentially codifying a multitude of cancers and some cardiovascular illnesses into law. I know some of the agencies are continuing to unpack those, largely as it relates to exactly who receives those. And so, our goal would be as many people as possible that are eligible for those. It seems right now, we just want to make sure that all those folks that are responding to fires on a regular basis in support roles, what have you, have the same coverages that we are all hoping to have as well. So, and I just want to remind folks, we went a long time without any kind of cancer coverage. I know a lot of us have probably lost friends and coworkers to cancer, and this is just such a huge step forward, and quite frankly, something I never thought I'd see in my career. So we are continuing to follow up to see what the interpretations of that is and how far that outreach is. In line with that, we are continuing to push. There were cancers within that law that were not covered, specifically some female reproductive cancers. So we are also working to see where that's at, working with folks in multiple agencies, trying to get more information, potentially collect some narratives here in the near future, so that we can help support that cause as well, and educate those that we're outreaching to, both the public, legislators, and of course firefighters. The firefighter registry that we've talked about was stood up a while back and brought to the forefront as a part of bill as well, or at least brought back into the picture. They are still running some pilot folks through that right now. So that is something, it sounds like late 2023 that will be released, and that would be available to everyone. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like just yet. I know they're still working out some bugs, but that's yet another measure forward, another resource for folks to use and document exactly what kind of exposures that they are experiencing in the field. And so, in closing, again, I just want to reiterate, beyond just prevention, beyond, response and or, follow-up to traumatic incidents, Grassroots really is focused on the big picture and trying to come at this from a very holistic approach. We think that's really important to get at the source. And, I think there's elements of the proposal put forth that really are good for firefighters and will provide options in the long run. And it really, it's a good first step toward moving forward. And it does sound like Max might have more information on some of the presumptive care. Luke, I'll pass it to you first, unless there's any questions, and you can hand it off to Max if you can speak to that with more clarity.
Yeah, we'll give Max the floor to speak to presumptive care, and then we'll move into Q&A.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks, guys. So, yeah, I can speak a bit to that because can you guys hear me right now? Yeah. All right. So I've been working pretty closely with the director of OWCP on all this presumptive illness stuff, and we're really kind of trying to push the boundaries as much as we can, and he pretty much agrees that anybody that has been exposed at all, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what your series is or anything, but any exposure, if we can just start getting people to document some of this stuff. I mean, most people can go back and find that documentation, but he's really willing to make sure that he will personally start accepting some of these cancers, some of these illnesses, to make sure that we start getting a process going of like, hey, this is accepted once, we'll keep accepting it. So if anybody knows of any of these situations, get a hold of me. I think most people know how to get a hold of me at this point. You can get a hold of me through the NEFI website if you don't. And I can personally call Chris Godfrey and get him to get on the case so we can get that accepted. Because the more we get accepted later on, it's just going to be easier for folks. So, and there's a lot of other stuff I'll talk to you guys offline about.
Thanks, Max. And I do appreciate NIFI's offer to get us directly in contact with Chris Godfrey to explain this, and we still need to take you up on that. So appreciate the heck out of it.
Yeah, sorry. I know we've all been busy kind of going from place to place. So we'll definitely get that together soon. And thank you guys for putting this together, and thanks for being partners. We appreciate you.
Likewise.
Thanks, Max.
With that, I know there's a lot of question and answers and questions that were preloaded, so we'll move to the comms team to facilitate the end of this recording and meeting.
All right, thanks, Luke. And if you can't hear me, give me a wave, but sounds like I'm coming through okay. So first off, while Luke is turning off the recording, I just want to say thanks to everybody for being on the call tonight. It means that you're seeing our e-newsletters and you're seeing our social media posts, trying to get folks